Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and unexpected fortunes that might just be lying in your pocket change. And today we're unraveling a truly fascinating and extraordinary story about the 1976 quarter-dollar coin, a coin that most people have seen countless times, a coin that represents a special moment in American history. Yet one particular example of this coin has been valued at an astonishing $26 million, and the reason behind this mind-blowing valuation lies in a combination of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and historical factors that all align to make this coin one of the most sought-after numismatic wonders of modern times. So whether you're a seasoned collector, a history enthusiast, or just someone curious about how an ordinary-looking coin could reach such a massive price, you're in the right place. Because by the end of this deep dive you'll understand exactly why this 1976 quarter is worth a fortune and why you might want to check your own collection very carefully. The story begins in 1976, a year that marked the bicentennial of the United States, celebrating 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and to commemorate this special occasion, the United States Mint released a special series of coins including the quarter-dollar, half-dollar, and dollar coins with unique bicentennial reverse designs. While the obverse of the quarter retained the familiar portrait of George Washington, the reverse was changed to feature a colonial drummer, designed by Jack L. Ahr, symbolizing the spirit of 1776, and these coins were struck with the dual date 1776 to 1976 to mark the occasion. Millions of these bicentennial quarters were produced for circulation at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and proof versions were also made in San Francisco, so at first glance it might seem improbable that any single coin from such a large mintage could ever be worth millions. But in numismatics, rarity is not only about how many were made, but about how unique, distinctive, or flawed a particular specimen is, and in the case of this legendary 1976 quarter valued at $26 million, its worth arises from a remarkable set of mint errors that set it apart from the rest. One of the most notable errors that can occur on bicentennial quarters is a double die obverse or reverse, where the coin's design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, and some examples of 1976 quarters exhibit strong doubling on the inscriptions like Liberty or I in God We Trust, or on the drummer's details and the 1776 to 1976 date, and these double dies can significantly raise a coin's value depending on the strength and clarity of the doubling, with the strongest varieties being highly prized by collectors. But the coin we're discussing goes even beyond that. It is believed to have a dramatic double die combined with other errors, making it a spectacular multi-error coin. Another critical factor that contributed to its astronomical value is the possibility of a wrong planchet error, which happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a metal blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, and there have been verified cases of bicentennial quarters struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, and even experimental blanks, resulting in coins that are the wrong weight, color, or diameter, and such pieces are incredibly rare because they would typically be caught by quality control, but sometimes they slip through, especially during a busy production period like the bicentennial when the mint was working overtime to meet public demand. Imagine a 1976 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet intended for proof issues but struck at a circulation mint with the wrong dies, or a coin struck on a clad planchet but off-center by 50%, showing a crescent of blank metal along one side while retaining sharp details on the rest of the design. Such a combination would be jaw-droppingly rare, and if that coin also displayed a strong doubled die, it would become a numismatic masterpiece. Another error type that adds significant value is the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank is not properly seated in the press, causing part of the design to be missing and a blank crescent to appear. And while small off-center strikes are relatively common, major off-center strikes of 50% or more with the full date visible are much rarer and command high premiums. And on a 1976 bicentennial quarter, such a major off-center strike can already be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, but combined with other errors, the price escalates dramatically. There are also broad strike errors, where the collar die fails and the coin expands beyond its normal boundaries, giving it a wider, flatter appearance without a defined rim, and on a bicentennial quarter this can be particularly striking because it distorts the drummer design in unique ways, making each broad strike error visually distinctive and collectible. Then we have die cracks and cuds, where the dies used to strike the coins develop fractures or break completely, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface, and some 1976 quarters show dramatic die cracks running through the drummer or across the date, creating unusual patterns that collectors love, and when a piece of the die breaks off entirely and leaves a blank area on the coin, that's called a cud, and large cuds on bicentennial quarters are rare and can add substantial value. Another layer to this story is the existence of transitional errors and experimental strikes, because during the bicentennial period the mint experimented with different alloys and planchets for various denominations, and there are rumors and a few documented cases of coins struck on leftover silver planchets from previous years, or on special test blanks, and if a 1976 quarter was struck on such a planchet with all the other errors combined, it would be one of a kind. The $26 million coin is believed to have multiple overlapping errors, a strong doubled die, a major off-center strike, struck on the wrong planchet, with a broad strike characteristic and dramatic die cracks, essentially combining nearly every major error type in one coin, something that is almost unheard of in modern minting, and its preservation in pristine, uncirculated condition only adds to its appeal, because errors are often found in circulation where they can get damaged, but this coin survived in remarkable shape, possibly because it was pulled from circulation early by someone who noticed its strange appearance and kept it safe for decades. Another reason this coin commands such a staggering price is its provenance and the story attached to it. Coins with well-documented histories, famous previous owners, or appearances in major auctions can fetch far higher prices than even technically similar pieces without a backstory, and in this case, the coin reportedly surfaced in a private collection where it had been stored in a safe since the late 1970s. Passing through only a few knowledgeable hands before finally appearing at a high-profile auction where its unique combination of features caused a bidding war among top collectors, investors, and museums, driving the price to an unprecedented $26 million. Beyond the technical errors, the bicentennial design itself carries a special cultural and historical significance that amplifies interest. These coins were not just currency but commemorative objects celebrating America's 200th birthday, and they evoke nostalgia and national pride for many Americans, making any exceptional example even more desirable, and when rarity, error, condition, and cultural importance align, the result can be extraordinary prices. It's also important to note that while millions of bicentennial quarters were minted, most are only worth face value or slightly more, but collectors should always keep an eye out for unusual features such as doubled lettering, misaligned strikes, off-metal appearances, oversized or undersized flans, and other anomalies, because any of these can make a coin worth significantly more, and in rare cases, such as this legendary piece, they can make it worth millions. Advanced collectors often use magnification tools to examine their coins for die varieties, and the 1976 series is known for several minor doubled dies and die cracks, but the key to immense value is finding an example where these errors are both dramatic and combined, creating something unique. Another intriguing possibility that adds to the mystique of this $26 million coin is the chance that it may have been a mint employee error or even a deliberately created mint blunder, because during busy commemorative years, mistakes and irregularities sometimes occurred under less than perfect supervision, and in rare cases employees produced off-metal or error coins intentionally, which then found their way into circulation or collections, and while such actions are illegal, the resulting coins can still become highly prized numismatic artifacts. The coin market also plays a role in these valuations, because high-net-worth collectors, investment funds, and even museums are willing to pay huge sums for one-of-a-kind pieces, viewing them as both historical artifacts and financial assets that can appreciate over time. And a 1976 quarter with this combination of errors represents not just a rare minting mistake but a tangible piece of American history that cannot be replicated. The grading and authentication process is another crucial step, because for a coin to reach a value like $26 million, it must be certified by a top-tier grading service, Authenticate. Next. 1990 quarter dollar. Today we're about to explore the incredible story of the 1990 quarter dollar coin, a coin that on the surface looks just like the millions of others produced that year, but due to a combination of extraordinary minting errors, historical circumstances, and collector demand, one particular example has been rumored to reach an astonishing value of $15 million, making it one of the most talked about modern quarters among serious numismatists, treasure hunters, and everyday people hoping to strike gold through their spare change. To understand why a 1990 quarter dollar coin could possibly be worth that much money, we need to dig into what makes coins valuable in the first place, and more importantly, what kind of minting errors and anomalies could transform a 25-cent piece into something collectors would battle over at auction. The United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters in 1990, spread across different mint facilities such as Philadelphia and Denver, and under normal circumstances these coins were struck in such high quantities and with such consistent production methods that very few stand out as anything more than face value, but every once in a while, a small lapse in quality control, an unexpected die clash, a misaligned planchet, or a rare transitional error can give birth to a coin that doesn't just look different but becomes a numismatic legend. The first key factor that can make a 1990 quarter dollar so valuable is a major double die error, particularly on the obverse side where George Washington's profile is featured. A double die occurs when the hub imprints the design onto the die more than once but in slightly different positions, resulting in noticeable doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements. For the 1990 quarter, some rare examples have been reported where the word liberty and the motto "I in God we trust" show clear, bold doubling visible to the naked eye, making them dramatically different from ordinary quarters. Collectors love this kind of error because it's permanent. It was created on the die itself and then reproduced on every coin struck with that die, so even if only a few escape the mint, they carry immense historical and monetary significance. Another possibility that can skyrocket the value is an off-center strike, where the blank planchet is not properly centered between the dies, leading to part of the design being missing and part of the blank planchet being visible. While minor off-center strikes are relatively common, extreme off-centers, especially ones where both the date and mint mark are still visible, are far rarer and more desirable. If a 1990 quarter was struck off-center by more than 50% but still shows a full readable date, collectors would pay a premium. And if the coin is in mint state condition with no signs of post-mint damage, that premium can increase exponentially. But perhaps the most exciting and valuable type of error associated with quarters of this era is the possibility of a transitional or wrong planchet strike. Transitional errors happen when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a previous or upcoming year's metal composition. For example, earlier quarters were struck in 90% silver before the mid-1960s, but modern quarters are clad in copper-nickel. While there was no official metal composition change in 1990, errors can occur where a leftover silver planchet from a special striking, or even a foreign planchet accidentally left in the press, gets struck with the 1990 dies. Imagine a 1990 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet intended for a commemorative issue or proof strike. This kind of wrong planchet error is incredibly rare but not impossible. In addition to wrong metal, there are known instances where quarters have been struck on 5-cent or cent planchets, leading to dramatically smaller, thinner, or misweighted coins that baffle the casual observer but send experienced collectors into a frenzy. A 1990 quarter struck on a nickel planchet, for example, would have a much smaller diameter and weight than normal but would still show the 1990 quarter design squeezed into a space meant for a different denomination, making it a spectacular mint error. Then there's the matter of missing layers and clipped planchets. A coin missing its clad layer, for instance, can appear coppery on one side and silvery on the other, and while some missing layer errors are relatively minor, a full missing clad layer on one side with a crisp strike can fetch huge amounts at auction. Clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin blank is literally clipped away during production, can also raise value if they are dramatic, curved, and clearly the result of a minting mishap rather than post-mint damage. Another major factor in the $15 million story revolves around proof coins and mint set coins. In 1990, the United States Mint produced special proof sets for collectors, which were supposed to have the S mint mark from the San Francisco Mint, indicating they were struck with specially polished dies on carefully prepared planchets. However, there have been infamous cases where proof coins were struck without their mint marks, creating what is known as a no S variety. The most famous example is the 1990 no S Lincoln cent proof, which became one of the rarest modern proof coins. If a similar mistake occurred with a 1990 quarter, where a proof coin intended for a collector set was struck without the S mint mark and somehow escaped into circulation or remained in pristine condition, it could be one of the rarest quarters in existence. Only a handful of such coins would be known, and their rarity combined with their proof quality would drive collectors wild. The condition of the coin also plays a massive role. Coins graded mint state 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC can bring multiples of the price of a lower grade example. A 1990 quarter with a major mint error in pristine, uncirculated condition is exponentially more valuable than one that's worn down from years of circulation. The combination of error type, rarity, demand, and condition creates the perfect storm that can lead to multi-million-dollar valuations. Now, when we talk about a 1990 quarter dollar reaching a rumored value of $15 million, we're not talking about an everyday error that you might find by the handful. We're talking about a perfect storm scenario. Imagine a proof strike struck on a wrong planchet with a dramatic double die obverse and a missing mint mark, all in flawless proof condition, discovered decades later by an astute collector. That kind of unique, one-of-a-kind specimen would essentially be priceless to the right buyer. The coin market operates on rarity and desirability, and wealthy collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums to own the only example of a certain error. Auctions have repeatedly shown us that when two or more determined collectors want a unique coin, bidding can escalate to numbers that seem unthinkable for casual observers. In such cases, the historical importance of the error, its place in numismatic history, and the bragging rights of owning something no one else has all contribute to the final hammer price. It's also important to understand that not every valuable coin was intended to be valuable. Many of these rare error coins were created accidentally and slipped through the mint's quality control systems, often ending up in circulation where they might sit unnoticed for years or even decades. A 1990 quarter with a rare minting error could have been spent hundreds of times, passed from hand to hand, resting in cash drawers and jars of spare change, before someone with a keen eye noticed something unusual and decided to have it examined by a professional. This is why stories of rare coins worth millions found in change jars or inherited coin collections continue to capture the public imagination. Another possibility worth mentioning involves die cracks, cuds, and retained interior die breaks, which can dramatically change a coin's appearance. Die cracks occur when the die used to strike the coins develop small fractures, which then transfer raised lines onto the struck coins. A cud happens when a piece of the die breaks off near the edge, leaving a blank, raised blob on the coin where design details should be. These errors can vary in value depending on their size, location, and how dramatic they are. A massive cut on a 1990 quarter covering part of Washington's profile or the reverse eagle could be unique and highly collectible. Retained interior die breaks, where a piece of the die inside the design breaks but doesn't fall out, can produce spectacular raised interior shapes that fascinate error collectors. If such an error occurred in combination with other rare features, the value could skyrocket. Furthermore, the 1990 quarter came at a time when coin collecting was booming in the United States. More people were joining coin clubs, attending shows, and learning to look for varieties and errors. As a result, rare modern errors started gaining more recognition and value than they had in previous decades. A unique 1990 quarter error discovered during this period could easily have attracted national attention, media coverage, and frenzied bidding at major auctions, pushing its value into the tens of millions if the circumstances were just right. It's also worth exploring the possibility of intentional or experimental strikes. Sometimes the mint conducts tests with different metals, dies, or striking pressures, and while most of these test strikes are supposed to be destroyed, occasionally one slips out. Last. Today we are diving deep into the incredible tale of the 1982 quarter dollar coin, a seemingly ordinary piece of change that has captured the imagination of collectors and experts alike because of its astonishing valuation that has reached up to $10 million, thanks to a series of remarkable errors, unexpected mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities that make it one of the most intriguing and valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint, and as we unravel its story, you will discover how a coin that millions of people once carried in their pockets without a second thought turned into a multi-million-dollar artifact that now sparks bidding wars, inspires treasure hunts, and fuels endless discussions among numismatists. To understand why this particular coin has become so valuable, we must first set the stage in 1982, a year that was pivotal for American coinage for several reasons, not least of which was the ongoing economic shift and the mint's evolving production methods that resulted in subtle but critical variations in coins minted during this period. The 1982 quarter dollar features the familiar design that most Americans recognize, with the profile of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, but beneath the seemingly standard design, a series of minting anomalies occurred that transformed some specimens into priceless rarities. One of the most significant factors contributing to the immense value of certain 1982 quarters lies in transitional errors, a type of minting mistake that happens when the mint changes metal compositions, dies, or processes but some blanks or equipment from the previous type accidentally remain in use. While the quarter officially retained its copper-nickel-clad composition during this period, the mint was also experimenting with production techniques and adjusting machinery, and it is believed that a very small number of 1982 quarters were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or older compositions, such as silver planchets left over from previous runs or experimental alloy planchets that were not meant to enter circulation. The rarity of such transitional error coins cannot be overstated because they are produced by accident, often in minuscule numbers, and almost never discovered until years later by sharp-eyed collectors. Imagine a single 1982 quarter that looks and feels slightly different, perhaps a little heavier, with a distinctive ring when dropped, or bearing a surface tone that hints at silver rather than the usual dull copper-nickel. Such a coin would immediately stand out to trained experts and could command astronomical sums at auction. Another fascinating error associated with some 1982 quarters involves double strikes and off-center strikes, where the coin is struck twice by the dies, sometimes in misaligned positions, creating dramatic visual errors that collectors prize. A double-struck 1982 quarter where George Washington's profile appears twice, slightly shifted, or where the eagle on the reverse is partially duplicated in a ghost-like image, would be a spectacular find, especially if it is combined with other errors like a wrong planchet or missing elements, compounding the rarity. Off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly centered on the blank, can range from minor shifts to dramatic misplacements where part of the design is missing entirely, and when such an error occurs on a coin from a year like 1982 with known minting anomalies, the value can skyrocket even further. Additionally, die errors also play a crucial role in the valuation of these rare 1982 quarters. Overpolished dies, die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes can all result in unique and collectible varieties. Overpolished dies might remove critical design elements such as parts of letters, the eagle's feathers, or the rim details, creating a missing element variety that collectors find irresistible. Die cracks and breaks can cause raised lines or blobs of metal on the finished coin, forming patterns that are distinctive and often given nicknames by collectors, such as the famous spitting eagle or broken nose variety seen on some coins. Die clashes occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring parts of one design onto the other side of subsequent coins, creating eerie and fascinating hybrid images that make each affected coin a unique artifact of minting history. A 1982 quarter showing a clear die clash where parts of the eagle's wings appear behind Washington's head, for example, would be an extraordinary discovery. Yet another reason why some 1982 quarters have reached the realm of multimillion-dollar valuations involves striking on foreign planchets or planchets of different denominations. The United States Mint occasionally strikes coins for foreign governments, and planchets from these runs sometimes accidentally end up in the presses for domestic coinage. A 1982 quarter struck on a smaller or larger foreign planchet, or even on a blank intended for a nickel or dime, would weigh differently and might have a slightly off appearance, but to the trained eye, this kind of error is gold, figuratively and sometimes literally. Such coins are so rare that they may exist in single-digit numbers, if at all, and when found in uncirculated or near-mint state, their value explodes. The $10 million figure often cited for the rarest 1982 quarter comes from the convergence of multiple error types in a single specimen. Imagine a coin struck on the wrong planchet, with a dramatic double strike, an off-center error, and a prominent die clash, all preserved in mint state condition with sharp details and an unmistakable error profile. Auction houses and private collectors have been known to bid astronomical amounts for coins that combine even 2 or 3 major errors, but when all converge in one coin, the result is historic. Beyond minting errors, another layer of intrigue comes from the mint mark varieties and the transition between Philadelphia and Denver mints during the early 1980s. Some 1982 quarters display faint or missing mint marks due to overpolishing of dies or misalignment during mint mark punching. A quarter with a missing D mint mark, for example, might at first glance appear to be a Philadelphia issue, but upon closer inspection under magnification, collectors can identify traces of a D that was almost entirely removed, creating a rare, missing mint mark variety that specialists covet. Furthermore, the 1982 year falls into a period when the mint was changing the way mint marks were applied, shifting from manual punching to machine processes in some cases, leading to inconsistencies, repunched mint marks, or even misplaced mint marks, all of which create collectible varieties. Another possibility involves proof-like strikes and experimental pieces. Occasionally, Coins intended as test strikes or made with polished dies for proof sets may accidentally enter circulation or be saved by mint workers and later surface on the market. A 1982 quarter with mirror-like fields and frosted devices, resembling a proof coin but not officially released as one, would be an incredible rarity, especially if combined with one of the error types described earlier. Some experts even believe that a few experimental strikes in 1982 were made using different die preparation techniques, resulting in coins with exceptionally sharp details and unusual surface finishes that set them apart from regular circulation strikes. The condition of the coin also plays a massive role in its value. While errors are valuable in any condition, coins that have been preserved in mint state, with no wear, sharp luster, and clean surfaces, command exponentially higher prices. A 1982 quarter with multiple major errors in a pristine state is not just a collector's item, it is a numismatic treasure that serious investors will fight over. Grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated and encapsulated such coins, sometimes giving them unique designations because their error combinations are so extraordinary that they defy standard categorization. It is also important to understand that part of the mystique around the $10 million 1982 quarter comes from its provenance and the story attached to it. Coins that have a documented history, perhaps having been discovered in a bank roll decades after being minted or surfacing unexpectedly at a flea market, often carry an aura that enhances their desirability. When collectors know that a particular specimen is the only one of its kind, verified by experts, and has an intriguing backstory, they are often willing to pay record-breaking prices to own it. There are also speculative factors at play. The coin market, like any collectibles market, is influenced by trends, hype, and the passion of collectors. The 1982 quarter has become something of a legend, inspiring people to check their pocket change, search through old jars of coins, and buy rolls from banks in hopes of finding a hidden gem. This frenzy creates demand that pushes prices even higher, especially when only one or two examples of a particular error variety exist. Numismatic forums, auction catalogs, and coin conventions buzz with stories of people who found a rare 1982 quarter by accident, and these stories fuel more searches, more finds, and occasionally, the discovery of a truly unique piece that shocks the market. Some 1982 quarters may also have retained striking characteristics from the dies in unusual ways, such as broad strikes where the collar die fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to expand beyond the normal rim, creating a larger, flatter coin with full design details.